Stage lights flickered as Whitney Houston stepped into the hotel corridor, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. She could feel it. Something was off. The air smelled different, heavier than usual, almost metallic, like a storm that hadn't arrived yet. She wrapped her scarf tighter around her neck and quickened her pace, rehearsing the lines for the upcoming concert in her head, trying to drown out the growing dread curling inside her chest. But it was impossible. The tape, the one she had recorded in secrecy just last week, her most intimate performance yet, was missing. She had hidden it herself, locked it inside a small compartment behind the nightstand drawer. She was certain no one knew. Not the crew, not the manager, not even her closest friends. It was her truth, raw and unfiltered, the side of her she could never show publicly. And yet, as she reached the elevator, her instinct screamed that someone had already been there, someone who had known exactly where to look. A sudden buzz from her phone made her jump. The screen read unknown caller. She hesitated, thumb hovering over the green button. Against every instinct, she answered. Silence. A shallow, deliberate breath, then the line went dead. Whitney's pulse raced. Whoever it was, they were playing with her. But why? What could they possibly want with a simple tape? The thought of someone taking something so personal filled her with both rage and fear. Back in her hotel room, she carefully opened the hidden compartment. Empty. Not a trace. The tape was gone. Panic surged through her, and she bolted to the door, checking the hallway. Nothing. No one. But the unease didn't lift. If anything, it intensified. It was as if the walls themselves had witnessed the intrusion, as if the entire building held its breath, waiting for her to realize the extent of the danger. And then she saw it. A small note, tucked under the edge of the desk. Her handwriting, unmistakable, but the message was not hers. You sang the truth. Now I own it. Her hands trembled. Her knees threatened to buckle. She backed away, eyes scanning the room for signs of a break-in, but nothing moved. The curtains fluttered slightly as if touched by a ghostly hand, the air still carrying the faint scent of someone else's perfume. Whitney knew immediately. Someone had been here. Someone meticulous, patient, and terrifyingly close. Minutes later, the doorbell rang. A single, measured chime that froze her in place. She wasn't expecting anyone. Guests at this hour? Impossible. Security wouldn't allow it. And yet, the sound resonated with a weight she couldn't explain. Whitney tiptoed to the peephole, holding her breath, heart hammering against her ribcage. The hallway appeared empty, dimly lit. Nothing. But her gut told her the truth. Someone had been there, watching, waiting, letting her think she was safe. Her phone buzzed again, a text this time. Closer than you think. She dropped it onto the nightstand, her fingers quivering. Whoever this was, they were methodical. Every move calculated. Every word designed to provoke fear. Whitney sank onto the edge of the bed, wrapping her arms around her knees. She was Whitney Houston. She had faced impossible odds before, battled heartbreak, addiction, the unrelenting glare of fame. But this felt different. Intimate, personal, and dangerous. Suddenly, a soft thud echoed from the hallway outside. Not loud, just enough to make her ears strain, to make her question the silence. Whitney held her breath, listening. The faint scrape of shoes against carpet, slow and deliberate. She wanted to call security, to run, to hide, but a part of her was paralyzed by curiosity and fear combined. And then the first re-hook hit, but the most shocking part was yet to come. Someone had slipped another item into her room while she was away. An envelope, plain, unmarked, resting on the corner of the desk. Her name wasn't on it. She hesitated, fingers hovering above the flap. Inside, a single Polaroid. Whitney on stage, the night she had recorded the demo, eyes wide, full of emotion she had never shared with anyone. The back simply read, I've been waiting. Whitney's breath hitched. The tape, the note, the Polaroid. They were pieces of a puzzle she couldn't yet see. But the puzzle had a face. Someone she trusted, someone close. And now, the stakes were clear. This wasn't about fame, or music, or even obsession. It was about control. She looked toward the hallway again. Shadows seemed to move just beyond her vision. The soft hum of the air conditioning suddenly felt ominous, like a warning. She needed answers, but she had only one thing, a sinking feeling that time was running out. Whitney clutched the Polaroid in her shaking hands, her pulse pounding like a drum in her ears. Whoever had sent it knew more than anyone should. The familiarity of the image made her stomach twist. Someone had been watching her every move during the most private recording she had ever done. And now, that person was sending messages, testing boundaries, and daring her to react. She paced the room, trying to make sense of the impossibility. How could someone infiltrate her safe space so easily? Security footage had shown no one, yet the evidence, the tape, the note, the photo, was undeniable. And when she glanced at her reflection in the hotel mirror, she barely recognized the face staring back. The usual confidence, the star power, the effortless grace, all of it had been replaced with fear. But not just fear, rage, confusion, and the desperate need to protect something that belonged to her and her alone. The phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Whitney hesitated, thumb hovering above the green button. Something inside warned her not to answer. But she did. The line was silent. Then a whisper so familiar it made her freeze. "You can't hide from me." Whitney dropped the phone, heart racing. Her mind ran through everyone in her inner circle, friends, assistants, backup singers, even family. Who could know where the tape was? Who could possibly harbor such knowledge and malice at the same time? And then the second rehook struck. Someone she trusted completely might be the orchestrator, someone who had been quietly plotting, waiting for the perfect moment. She sank onto the bed, burying her face in her hands. The thought of betrayal burned hotter than the fear. She had survived scandals, heartbreaks, and public scrutiny, but this was intimate. This was personal, and the audacity of the perpetrator, leaving clues just enough to torment her, made her feel violated in a way she couldn't articulate. Then a knock. 3 soft, deliberate taps. Whitney's breath hitched. She wasn't sure if she wanted to open the door, but curiosity, mixed with the urgent need for answers, compelled her forward. One step, then another. She pressed her eye to the peephole. Nothing. The hallway was empty, dimly lit, silent. Her pulse slowed slightly, but unease still gripped her like ice. She turned back toward the desk. The Polaroid lay there, as if daring her to pick it up again. Whitney's trembling fingers lifted it. On the back, another message scrawled in a handwriting she recognized immediately. Hers. But she had never written it. "Do you remember the night?" Her mind raced. The only night that mattered, the night of the demo recording. And suddenly, every friend, every person she trusted, every face she knew flashed through her mind. Could one of them have been watching? Could one of them want this power over her? Whitney grabbed her phone and called her manager. "We need security footage. Every angle. Everything from last week. Now." He promised to deliver, but she could feel the frustration in his voice. He didn't understand the personal nature of the threat, couldn't grasp the intimate terror of someone watching her most vulnerable moments. Then the third rehook hit. She remembered a detail she had overlooked. A small limp. The way the shadow moved outside her hotel room in the first week. A subtle drag of the left foot. Someone she had crossed paths with during rehearsal. Someone close, someone familiar. The realization made her stomach turn. Her gut screamed it. Someone she trusted might have been stalking her, waiting, plotting. She couldn't stay still. Whitney moved to the window, peering out into the dimly lit courtyard. Her mind replayed the events of the last few days. The note, the Polaroid, the whisper on the phone, the empty drawer. Each piece of evidence was like a pulse, signaling life in the darkness. Someone was out there, someone patient, meticulous, and frighteningly close. And the tape she had recorded in secret, was just the beginning. Suddenly, the phone buzzed again. Another message, a short video this time. Whitney's eyes widened as she opened it. The footage showed the hallway outside her room. Empty, silent. And then, a shadow appeared, moving slowly across the frame. The limp was unmistakable. The timing, the gait, it was exactly what she had feared. Someone had been there, watching, waiting, and now they were taunting her. Whitney backed away from the screen, heart racing. The walls felt closer, the room smaller, suffocating. She realized she couldn't trust anyone, not fully, not for a second. And the most terrifying thought settled in her mind. The intruder knew more than she did. They had knowledge of her movements, her secrets, her vulnerabilities, and they were using it to control her, to manipulate her, to make her feel powerless. But Whitney Houston was not powerless. Not completely. She had survived adversity before, had faced the public eye, had endured betrayal and heartbreak, and had emerged stronger each time. She knew she had to act. She had to find the tape before it was too late. Before the intruder escalated. Before the truth, whatever it was revealed to the world. And just as she made her decision, the fourth re-hook landed. A soft chime from the elevator down the hall. Someone was coming. Slowly. Deliberately. Their steps measured, echoing in the corridor. Whitney's pulse quickened. She had 10 seconds to decide. Hide, confront, or flee. But before she could move, the room went dark. The blackout lasted only seconds, but when the lights flickered back on, she saw a figure at the end of the hallway. Unmoving, watching, waiting. And Whitney knew, with a terrifying certainty, that the real nightmare had only just begun. Whitney's heart raced as the figure remained at the end of the hallway, shadowed but unmistakably human. Every instinct screamed danger, yet something in the posture felt deliberate, almost taunting. She inched toward the door, fingers brushing the wall for guidance. Her phone lay on the desk, vibrating relentlessly. Another unknown number. She didn't answer. She couldn't. The figure shifted slightly, limping subtly, confirming what her gut had whispered. Someone she knew had orchestrated all of this. Her thoughts whirled. Could it be someone from her crew? Her manager? One of the backup singers? The possibilities narrowed, but each was more shocking than the last. The tape, the note, the Polaroid, the whispers, all signs pointed inward toward betrayal. And betrayal, Whitney knew, was far more painful than fear itself. She turned away from the hallway, back toward the desk. A stack of envelopes, previously unnoticed, now sat neatly aligned. She picked the top one. Inside, a single sheet of paper with words she knew she hadn't written. Do you remember the promise you made? The one only I know. Whitney's blood ran cold. A promise? Who could know of it? Her mind raced through every conversation, every fleeting confession made in confidence. The tape wasn't just about music. It was about something far deeper, something intimate that no one should ever discover. And yet someone had. Someone who had been patiently waiting for this moment. She moved to the window again, peering down at the empty courtyard below. The shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, twisting and curling like living things. Every instinct screamed that she was being watched, monitored. And then the fourth re-hook. The whisper from the phone returned, soft but unmistakable, carried through a text that appeared as if by magic. Open the door. I'm not alone. Whitney froze. The words burned into her mind. She didn't know who I was, or who was with them, or what they wanted. Panic surged, but it was tempered by determination. She had faced public scrutiny, heartache, and betrayal before, and she would face this too. She would not be intimidated. But the threat was no longer abstract. It was tangible, immediate, pressing. Then, a sound from the adjacent hallway made her flinch. A soft scrape of shoes, deliberate and measured. Her pulse quickened, a bead of sweat sliding down her temple. She crept toward the door, hand trembling, ready to confront or flee. Her eyes caught a reflection in the mirror, a shadow behind her, fleeting, almost imperceptible. Whitney spun, but nothing was there. Only the lingering sense of presence, a suffocating tension that made the room feel smaller, oppressive. She backed away slowly, remembering the limp. It had to be the same person. The one who had infiltrated her room, manipulated the tape, sent the Polaroid, and whispered through the phone. Someone close. Someone she trusted. And the implications sank in. This was no ordinary intrusion. This was personal, intimate, calculated. Someone had been planning this for weeks, watching, waiting, studying her every move. Whitney's hand shook as she grabbed her phone again. Security had confirmed no unauthorized entry aside from the earlier events. Yet the proof was undeniable. The tape was gone, the Polaroid had appeared, and the notes kept arriving. Whoever it was had resources, patience, and knowledge of her private life that she could not comprehend. And then came the fifth re-hook, a soft chime from the hotel intercom, a signal she knew she had never triggered. The voice, familiar yet distorted, whispered through the speaker. "You can't hide. Not from me. Not tonight." Whitney staggered back, the room spinning. The shadows seemed to elongate, filling every corner with menace. She tried to call her manager, but the line was dead. She tried security, no response. Every exit seemed blocked, every safe space compromised. The fear that had been simmering now boiled over into full-blown terror. She stumbled toward the window, scanning the streets below. No one. But then her eyes caught movement at the hotel's roof, silhouetted against the night sky. A figure, limping, bending, watching. The tape. It had to be about the tape. Whoever it was, they wanted control, and Whitney was the key. The room fell silent. Then a knock, 3 deliberate, slow taps, echoing against the walls, louder than before. Whitney's breath hitched. She knew she had seconds to act. Her hands trembled, but she knew hiding wasn't an option. The intruder wanted her afraid, wanted her paralyzed. But Whitney Houston had survived impossible odds before. She reached for the desk drawer. Inside, her notebook, the one she never showed anyone, was missing. Panic surged anew. The tape, the notes, the Polaroid, her personal notebook, all gone. Someone had meticulously taken everything that contained her truth. The weight of betrayal, exposure, and fear pressed down on her. And then, just as she gathered the courage to make a move, the 6th re-hook struck. The soft, deliberate click of a door unlocking somewhere else in the hotel, down the corridor. Whitney's pulse thundered. She realized the figure had moved. And now, they were closer than ever. Whitney's legs trembled as she edged toward the door, every nerve screaming that she was seconds away from discovering the truth, or the end. The faint echo of the intruder's footsteps grew louder, deliberate, echoing in perfect rhythm with her own heartbeat. She clutched the Polaroid, the notebook, the memory of the tape, all pieces of her life now dangling in the hands of someone she couldn't identify, someone she might have once trusted. The hallway lights flickered violently, casting long, twisted shadows. Whitney backed into the corner, her gaze locked on the far end where the door to room 1206 creaked open slightly. A figure stepped out, limbs controlled, posture deliberate, every movement calculated. Her pulse thundered. This was the person who had orchestrated the entire ordeal, and now they were finally visible. Her phone buzzed. A text. Another re-hook. "I've been waiting for you to see me." The message froze her. Whitney's fingers shook as she read it. The sender was the intruder, of course, but the signature was unmistakable, someone she had let into her heart. Someone whose betrayal cut deeper than any fan or stranger ever could. She took a deep breath. Whitney Houston had survived countless storms, but this was different. This was personal, intimate, relentless. She couldn't scream. She couldn't run. She had to confront. With every ounce of courage, she stepped into the hallway. The figure moved forward, limp subtle but unmistakable. The shadows danced across the walls. Whitney stopped, eyes narrowing, and finally saw the face she dreaded. It was her former assistant, someone she had trusted implicitly, someone who had access to her room, her schedule, her secrets. The realization hit like a physical blow. Every note, every Polaroid, every whisper, it had all been them. But the tape? Whitney held her breath. The figure reached into a coat pocket and pulled out the demo tape. Her eyes widened, fury and fear mingling. The intruder smiled faintly, almost apologetically. "You thought this was about music," they whispered. "But it's always been about truth. Your truth. And I wanted the world to hear it my way." Whitney's knees shook. Rage burned hotter than fear. "You had no right," she said, voice steady despite the storm inside. "Everything you've done, Every second you've manipulated, it ends now. The intruder's smile faltered. Whitney took a step forward, then another. The tape stays with me, she said, and you face justice. No more games. A tense pause, then the soft click of security arriving in the hallway. Guards flooded in, catching the intruder mid-step. They tried to resist, but Whitney didn't flinch. She had the courage, the truth, the evidence. The ordeal that had haunted her for days was finally coming to an end. And just as the intruder was restrained, Whitney noticed something. The Polaroid, another one, slipped into her hand as if by magic. She opened it. Her eyes widened. It showed her on stage, smiling, radiant. The caption read, "You survived, but the story isn't over. Keep singing." Whitney's chest heaved, a mix of relief, exhaustion, and triumph washing over her. The tape was safe, the intruder apprehended, the secrets intact. But she knew the world had changed. Trust would never be the same. And yet, she also knew something else. Her voice, her art, her spirit. No one could take that from her. The final rehook lingered in her mind. Someone had been close enough to ruin everything, but she had survived. And in surviving, Whitney Houston proved once again that strength, courage, and truth could withstand even the darkest shadows. The hotel corridor fell silent. The lights steadied, and Whitney finally exhaled. She held the tape close, whispering to herself, "I control my story. Always." And in that moment, she understood. The fear, the betrayal, the shadows, they were behind her. Her truth, her music, her legacy, they were hers alone.